What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 176 of the Stand Up Guys podcast. I'm your host, the incomparable Zach Jones, joined as always by a star of the Disney Sus original program, Wreck Hole, where he plays the villainous Wilson Fisk. It's the phenomenal AJ Singh.
What's up, everybody? How's it going?
Now, AJ, we're a little late with the podcast this week, but it at least gave us a chance, as I alluded to watch Echo and review it here. So I guess we'll start with our Echo review and then see what we have time for later on. So for anyone who hasn't watched our reviews, usually what we do first is like a overall thoughts, spoiler-free type of thing. And then we'll go into a more detailed breakdown. Now, usually I will, if it's a week-to-week show, I will usually like take my own notes and kind of go super in depth. Because these all dropped at once, I didn't do that. So we'll talk more generally, I guess. But we will still get into some spoilery stuff as well. So AJ, I'm curious your off the top thoughts about this show, because for me, I'll say this: it was better than I thought it would be, because I thought it would be bad, and in the end, I think it was just okay. And so I guess in that way, it surpassed my expectations. What did you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Like, when I heard about the show, I was like, why are they even making it? You know, I was very skeptical. I thought it was just a cash grab. After watching it, I think it was like as good as it could have been for what the character was, probably. You know, like they added some depth, some backstory, and you know, I like the villain. You know, Wilson Fisk. Like, he's a fun character to watch. So I think having him in anything elevates it. So yeah, it was better than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, I would say just like in the Netflix Daredevil show, like Kingpin is the highlight of this show, probably.
Yeah.
I'm still glad, we've talked about Hawkeye on this show and how I kind of hated how he was used in Hawkeye. I think he came off better in this show. He at least didn't do anything as kind of as silly and over the top as he did in Hawkeye. I will say, you and I talked about this a little bit off camera. One thing that I noticed of the show that I thought was very strange is at points it was like, you know how like on streaming when you watch a show that was made for TV and commercial breaks, how
Yeah.
sometimes there's like very abrupt cuts to where you know where, oh, that's where the commercial would have been. This
Yeah.
show, even though it was made for streaming, has those type of cuts in it, which I found very strange. Which I know
Yeah.
streamers are like kind of going back to the TV model and having a lot more of them are having like, oh, pay less per month but ad supported. So like, but still, I just thought it was strange how abrupt some of the cuts were in this. You noticed that too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Every time it kind of stood out. It was kind of weird. It was like watching an old MacGyver episode or something on like streaming services or something.
It
So
was. It really was. I thought that was a very bizarre choice. And that's another thing
yeah.
like about this show is and I think this is okay given like what this show is. It definitely felt like it had a lower budget than any other Marvel show, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think given that it's just kind of a street level character, I'm fine with that. There were a few points that I guess we can get into in spoilers where I'm like, um, oh, it looked like they were trying to save money in this scene. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, overall, God, without getting into spoilers, there's one aspect of the show that I didn't like, um, and but overall, like I can't complain too much. Like I said, I thought this show was going to be bad, and in the end, like I think it's fine. Like, and I don't think it wears out its welcome. It's only 5 episodes. I think most of the episodes are around 40 minutes, so it's not like a terrible time commitment or anything either.
Yeah. That first episode was kind of long though. That it seemed like it was the longest episode.
It
I
probably was.
yeah, I was definitely glad when it ended. You know, it seemed to dragged on a little too long. But then after the first episode, I felt like the next few episodes like really changed the pace up too. like with the style of the show. Like she left, you know, the area she was in and went to a new area, and like there was more story there. So it kind of became like a whole different uh tone after that first episode.
I will say that for this show, like, I do wonder how jarring it is for people who didn't see her in Hawkeye, because like they do like a flashback to the events of Hawkeye and like her, uh, seeing her dad killed and like Hawkeye talking to her. And so like we have that background knowledge, but if someone is watching this fresh, like I get that they would still get like the general idea of what happened, but at the same time I think they would feel like this seems weird, like, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
uh
yeah, for sure.
I think this might be a bit jarring for people who did not see her kind of role in Hawkeye.
Yeah.
um but at the same time they did need to kind of, I think, show us that to at least a certain extent and kind of remind the audience and everything. So
Yeah, for
I don't
sure. I
have a
mean,
big problem with it.
you need the backstory with what happened with Fisk and everything, you know. That's a huge part of the show.
Yeah. All
Fisk,
right.
once again, he comes off as like superhuman. He always is. Like he's just a big fat guy, but he can withstand basically anything and survive.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, that's the thing that really bothered me about that last episode of Hawkeye was he was like surviving things that he could really only do as a superhuman, and I don't like him being like a superhuman. I just like him to be like, you know, a big guy that, uses intimidation to get what he wants. And yeah, he was still physical in this show, I guess, and he did survive somehow a shot to the eye. Like,
They did like go back to his old personality from Daredevil, like where he's more like, you know, there's more subterfuge, there's more manipulation. He recalls his past, which was very in line with what we saw in the old Daredevil show. It seems like. Um, so yeah, I mean, like I think they're going back to that type of Wilson Fisk.
yeah, that's why I liked his portrayal in this show better than Daredevil. Is
Mhm.
it seemed like it was at least a half measure between um, what we got in Hawkeye and what we got in that original uh, Netflix Daredevil show. So it seemed closer at least to the Daredevil show, which I liked.
Yeah.
Oh, I did hear. I don't think it's like confirmed yet, but it did. Now that they're reworking the Daredevil show, I think they're going to get the actors that played Foggy Nelson and Karen Page from that show like into the new one.
Oh, that's great. I love
Yeah,
that cast.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. Yeah, I really, especially I think her name's like Deborah Ann Wall, the
Yeah.
woman that plays Karen Page. I think she's actually really good.
Yeah, yeah. She was in that game God of War too. She played Kratos' wife Faye.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, so before we get into spoilers, I'm curious, what would your score out of 1 to 10 be for this show?
You know, I feel like I need to go back and look at my old scores for different stuff because I might have given like too high scores for other things. But if I'm just starting from scratch, I'd give this like a 6 out of 10.
I'm right. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's 6 out of 10. I think it's not the best thing. It's not the worst thing. But
Yeah,
given that I was almost dreading watching this show. Like I thought it was going to be like super. Maybe it's just going in with low expectations is sometimes good. And then I was like,
yeah.
yeah, it was okay. It was okay, and it's an easy watch. It's a relatively quick watch. Yeah, I would say it's a recommend, but not in like an enthusiastic recommend.
Yeah.
Okay, with that said, AJ, should we go into spoiler territory?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I want to start with the thing I think I like the least about this, which is kind of the supernatural element of her getting actual superpowers.
This is your
So,
least exciting part of the. Okay, yeah,
yeah, I don't like it because I like that ostensibly she's a street level character and like, her strength comes from her fighting ability.
yeah,
And so what we find out is that she eventually gets this power that's like connected to her ancestors, and like basically in times of need, like her hands start to glow and she gets really strong and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, she's basically a superhuman, like, or superpowered. Yeah.
And I didn't like that. And like I will say, even though I've read a ton of comics and a lot of Daredevil comics, I've never read like her story in the comics.
Right.
And so I was wondering if this was the comics. And then I saw somebody post on Twitter that in the comics her name is Echo, because she's basically like Taskmaster, and like she can mimic like basically anything she sees, copy other people's fighting abilities and stuff like that, and that's why she's called Echo.
Yeah.
And I looked up the character on Wikipedia as well, and that's what it said. So to me, that's much cooler than this just kind of supernatural Deus Ex Machina. Let's give her powers to get her out of jam type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And their whole thing was like, oh, it's called Echo because you feel the echoes of your ancestors, basically. But I don't know,
Okay.
that whole storyline, I just didn't. It didn't jive with me. I don't know what you think.
I mean, I appreciate, like, I don't know if that's like I imagine like Marvel tried to like stay true to like the culture of the what were the Choctaw people?
Yeah,
So maybe we learned a little bit about like their, beliefs and like what their religion or what their, system is, their culture. And if that's the case, that's cool. I like learning about that stuff. But if, like besides learning about the culture and seeing that portrayed on the show, like I don't know how much like having it intertwined with powers and giving it to her and making it like, you know yeah, that was kind of like a reach for me. I think she was fine without powers. She was like Hawkeye or Daredevil, like street level person. Like you don't need to give her powers, but I mean now she has them, and I guess you just have to have powers in the Marvel universe to
yeah,
do
I guess
anything.
so. The other thing I wonder is like, how much are they going to use her going forward? I could see her making like a guest appearance in the Daredevil show, something like that. But my guess is they probably are not going to use her to a large degree. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe she'll heal a very important character in Secret Wars or something, Maybe she'll use her healing powers to bring somebody back from almost the grave, Like I don't know.
Even though I said I liked the show decently, I don't think I would want a season two of this show. Like I would be okay seeing her in other shows, but I don't think
Yeah,
I need Echo season two.
right, right. I would have definitely would rather have seen like WandaVision season two. Even though it's great the way it happened.
Right.
That was a very fun to watch show, and I was excited about watching it. But this was like I was hemming and hawing for the first episode. I was like, gosh, I wasn't really excited. I was kind of like barely getting through the first episode, but then it did pick up. It got better, but I'm not clamoring for more. So yeah,
I will say that in that first episode, we get that fight scene where Daredevil shows up, and I actually thought that was done
yeah,
decently,
yeah. That was
and
cool.
I liked him
Whatever.
showing up.
I think Daredevil is just one of those characters that because he was done so well recently in the Netflix show. Uh, he just brings like good vibes to any show he's in, except for She-Hulk, which they totally made a weird decision there with
That
him.
was very strange. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I just like seeing Daredevil on screen. So I remember when he was in Spider-Man, I was like, that was awesome. I like seeing him even for a second, like even though he wasn't in costume, he was just fun to watch. So yeah, I just like the character. I like Charlie Cox. I'm glad he's still playing him, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You know what? One thing I thought was a little bit weird is so she goes back to her hometown, and like we find out that like which is in like Oklahoma, so far away from New York City, where like the kingpin reigns supreme. But he just conveniently has like his own like company in like Oklahoma, like on their like reservation or whatever. You know what I mean? I just thought that was convenient and weird.
Yeah, and they're all like pretty much intertwined with Kingpin's operations. Like, everybody she talks to like is aware of him, has worked for him. It's like, what is this Oklahoma to New York pipeline straight into like the underworld of Kingpin? Like, is he recruiting from this small town? Is that what he's doing? Is he just going to Middle America and just looking for native tribes to recruit or something? It was weird. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of him being like, the kingpin of New York. Maybe he would move into like New Jersey and like the surrounding like northeastern areas, but I don't know. I don't like the idea of him having like his tendrils in like every part of America, including like this, small town in the middle of nowhere. It just didn't make sense to me. It was just kind of a convenient thing to make it more personal to like her family or whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, another thing I didn't really like is okay. So she goes back to her hometown, and I guess she thinks she's only going to be there a couple days or whatever. So well, first of all, she meets that Biscuits guy. Which what did you think of Biscuits?
Was that the guy who which one was he?
He's the guy with the dog that like helps her out.
Oh, in the truck? Yeah,
Yeah, in the
okay.
truck.
They don't really show him that much. They just kind of, for like a little bit of a one episode, he's kind of a helpful character.
By the way,
I
is
think he
he
was
is
like,
he Native American?
I think so. I think everybody in that town is pretty much Native American. It's like a reservation, I think. I'm not sure.
That's what I was saying. He probably is. He looks whiter than most of them.
Yeah. Um, I think he was like a comic relief type character, like, a little bumbling, kind of stumbling,
Yeah.
good-hearted person. And there's always one of those in every show, like there's a mixed cast. And he was okay. I didn't have any negative feelings towards him. I just thought he's kind of thrown in there.
Yeah, he was okay. And she also meets up with her, I think he's like her uncle, the guy that owns like the roller rink, and he's also like tied up with the mafia and like the kingpin, I guess. Um
Yeah, yeah. He seems like he's like the protector of the town sort of thing.
yeah, something like that. Like I think he like manages Wilson Fisk's like business in that town or something like
Yeah.
along those lines. But okay, so she talks to them, but she's very clear like, don't let anyone else know that I'm in town, and especially Bonnie, like my cousin who I was close to as a kid. And
I
like they
never
make that
understood that. What was the deal there?
that's the thing I'm getting at is it's like that thing we hated in the Marvels where they manufacture this drama of like, oh, why didn't you talk to me more? Why didn't you like, that sort of thing? Like, you promised you would talk to me or come back or whatever, and they just manufacture this drama. It's just like the Marvels.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It seems really silly, man. Like I don't understand this. There was a show I used to watch called Supernatural. You probably heard of it.
Oh,
It
right,
lasted like
right,
15 seasons, and
right.
it felt like at it felt like every other episode there was just some BS drama. Like they just had to force some like soap opera kind of like drama into it just to add to like whatever you know emotion they could add to the show, like whatever gravity they could add to it. And I think that's what they were doing here because this was so ridiculous. You're telling me in the day and age, like she even mentioned she reached out to her in so many ways, and she doesn't even respond to that. She's like, people just grow apart. That happens. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is this is so stupid.
It is really stupid because they harp on it a couple of times. Like I think more than one person tells her like, "Oh, if Bonnie finds out you were here and didn't see her, like she's gonna be mad." And then when they finally do meet up, it's not like it's a big like thing really. It's
Yeah,
just it seemed like a just manufactured drama that never paid off, and I was just like, ugh, less
she
of this.
ghosted Bonnie. Okay, she
Yeah,
ghosted Bonnie. That's the big drama. Like, oh come on, man. People ghost each other all the time.
and then basically they have the other drama, which is like the grandmother ghosted her, and so
Oh,
they have their conflict because of that, and it's like, oh my god.
whoever wrote this show really doesn't like being ghosted. Like that's what it comes
That's
down
what it seems like,
to.
yeah. So that kind of stuff, I felt like it just seemed like needless, really.
Yeah.
Um, oh, so there's, I think it's like maybe episode 3. They have that whole thing where her and Bonnie get kidnapped at the roller rink, and well, first of all, I thought it was weird. She like remember she like MacGyver's that thing that can like shoot projectiles. I don't even know what it
Okay. Yeah.
is. She
Yeah.
like, so I thought that was weird. But then there's a scene where like she finally does get loose and like she shuts off the lights. And I thought it was funny because like the bad guys go in the back room and she's like kind of like sneaking up on him and taking him out. But it all looked like the same set, just shot from like slightly different angles. That's what I was alluding to earlier. They didn't have a lot of money and they had to like shoot this action scene, but it seemed like it was all in the same room and just like they used like slightly different camera angles to cover the fact that it was like all in the same room. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they made the choices, you know. I mean, there's a reason they weren't shooting this in New York City. Like, it was like a middle of nowhere with like mostly the skating rink being like a large portion of the scenery for what most of 1 or 2 episodes. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, they were limited with sets regardless.
That is true. They did keep using that roller rink set quite a bit.
Yeah.
Trying to think. I mean, I guess they didn't have a lot of major action scenes. I guess they had the whole like train thing where she plants. I thought it was so she gets on this train and she like plants a bomb on that package she knows they're going to take back to New York or whatever and open. But I thought it was funny because it's like a small bomb, but it blows up like a gigantic building, like all like,
Yeah, yeah.
and this like long building, and it just like blows out every single window in it. And I'm like, boy, she really knows how to make a bomb.
Yeah. I also didn't understand who she was going after. Like, who was she targeting? I thought she thought Fisk was dead, so was she trying to take down his operation after she killed him, or what was going on there?
Yeah, I mean that's the feeling I get is she was trying to take down their operation, but also whether she knows he's dead or not, like they've been coming after her because like when she gets there, like she's been shot in like the side
Oh,
by
right, yeah.
somebody. So like uh she's fighting with them, I guess, regardless.
Mhm.
But also like it doesn't like she shoots Kingpin in the eye. Does she not? Why not shoot him a couple more times just to make sure he's dead? You know what I mean? She could have saved herself a lot of drama.
It's the easiest choice to make. Like, it doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't do it. Like, if you're gonna kill somebody, kill them for like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Just plot purposes.
You know, a couple times, like when Kingpin took off his like eye bandage, I thought they were going to give him like a cybernetic eye or something like
Uh,
something weird like that. You know what I mean?
he's got the tech for it apparently.
Yeah, he's got the like the contact lens, interpret sign language thing, which I guess is a cool
That was
technology.
a cool thing for the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I gotta say, her family is pretty nice. They all learn sign language for her.
I mean, well, her mom I think was also deaf, so like
Oh, right.
her, they already had like that in their history.
Also, like with the whole like inheriting of powers, like her mom had like a healing power, but it seems like some of her other ancestors had like the more like, oh, I'm like Superwoman for a couple seconds power. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we're gonna see more obscure stuff come out in the future, perhaps, if we see her more of her. Yeah.
You know, something I also didn't really care for is like she's just learning about this power and she's only used it like, briefly once or twice, but in that last episode, she for some
Oh,
reason knows that she can share it with her other family, like women and her, like Bonnie and her grandmother.
oh yeah.
Like also like between this show and Blue Beetle, can we put a moratorium on grandmothers like fighting bad guys.
Oh man, like I don't know who's funny bone that tickles. Like I don't know who's going after that and like just busting a gut to grandmas fighting in superhero movies, but I guess there's an audience for it. I don't know.
I know some people don't like the whole damsel in distress thing, but if an 80-year-old feeble woman can't be a damsel in distress, nobody can.
Right, right, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just silly to see. I don't know. I wish that's something I hope they can stop doing going forward. Trying to think. Oh, AJ, did you happen to watch the last episode? Did have after credits stinger? Did you happen to
Oh
watch
no,
that?
I was ready to turn it off.
So it's basically Wilson Fisk watching TV,
Mhm.
and he sees that commercial saying that like basically there's the mayoral race in New York is going on, and like one of the pundits is like, it still seems like some anybody's game, like an outsider could come in and win this whole thing. So, like most likely for the Daredevil show, they're going to follow what they've done in the comics recently, and he's going to become mayor of New York City. It seems like.
Like even the Netflix show, I think wasn't he running for mayor or something like that?
It's been a while since I watched those. I don't remember him doing that, but they could have alluded to it there as well. I don't remember.
Sure. But yeah, it's in line with this character.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm okay with them doing that.
Mhm.
But
It adds complexity. How do you beat up the mayor?
oh, you know what else that was funny? So there's that episode where he like sits her down to have dinner with him or whatever, and she pours the wine down the sink. And I've never seen a Shasta Cola like product placement in a television
Yeah,
show.
Shasta really okay, good for them. They
For
wrangled up the bucks for the Echo show.
I thought that was funny. Yeah, Shasta Cola forking out the big bucks for advertising. Trying to think if there's anything else worthy of touching on. Oh, we got Biscuits in the monster truck taking out the bad guys in the last episode.
There was that weird dilemma she had, like where she like Wilson Fisk offers her like to make her like the queen pin, like his right hand man or whatever, like his partner in crime, and she considers it, and I was like, she really seriously considered it, and it was just a huge like it was a huge turn from what I expected her to react with. Like she wanted to kill him so badly. He killed her father. He's ruined her town, messed up her community, and like here she is like having a conversation with somebody else. Like you don't think I can do it or whatever. Like that's such a weird way she went into that. Like I thought she would definitely be like maybe she'd play the part like she's interested just to stay alive for a little longer so she can come up with a plan, but she really did consider that turn. That was kind of weird to me.
Also, she could have easily killed him again, and she didn't.
Yeah,
Which
that's true
she's
too.
and they tell us the audience that she killed like a bunch of people when she worked for him. So it's like it's not like she hasn't done it before.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing that I think would have been like an interesting choice that could have went with that could have led in possibly to her having an expanded role in Daredevil is like it would have been cool maybe if like Kingpin basically threatened her family if she didn't become Queen Pin and like work
Yeah.
under him or whatever. And like maybe she takes that position just to like plot against him in the
Yeah.
future.
True. True.
That could have been interesting.
Yeah.
Um, you know, another thing is like her grandmother like makes the costume for her and she finds it. And like I was okay with it, but on the other hand, like she's a character that doesn't even really need a costume. But I
Right.
guess it's I
Yeah.
guess it's okay that she gets it, but and it looked okay. But
Yeah. I didn't really care for the costume. It. I guess I've never seen her character in the comics or anything, so I don't know anything
yeah,
about
me
her. But
neither.
uh, does everybody need a costume? Like, can't somebody just be like normally dressed, like just doing their own thing? You know, like I wouldn't mind somebody being normal. You know, just being a hero, but actually being normal.
I guess Luke Cage is kind of like that.
But Luke Cage, he has powers. Like this girl
Yeah.
didn't have powers. She didn't have a costume. She was just a person. She was deaf. She was, she had like a setback, right? You know, she was fighting upward. Like she was, fighting people who were in a position of normalcy while she was like, in a different position. And instead they make her stronger than other people in that way and more capable. Like I don't know. I would have rather she like figured out how to do it on her own.
Yeah, I can see that. Um, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, but I thought they did a decent job with like all the whole her being deaf sign language stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would have rather her, be. I like her powerful without the actual superpowers. I guess is just my big thing. Is like,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, even if I mean, you can say it's kind of a superpower. Like I said, I guess in the comics, she like is really good at like mimicking other people and like picking up on their fighting styles, which I guess is kind of a superpower, but also maybe just, but also doesn't necessarily have to be a superpower. It can just be her like being very good in that way.
I mean, it's like Daredevil, one sense goes away and the other five senses can be heightened, like
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
use them to your strength. So what was a weakness becomes a strength, right?
Yeah, and I guess she does kind of make a good foil for Daredevil in that way, where like he's blind and all his other you know he's got really good hearing, and maybe she could be the opposite, where like she's deaf, but like her eyesight's like really good, or her other senses, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, Trying to think if there's anything else we didn't talk about in this show that would be worth touching on. Oh, like I also thought it was weird that like so there's the train scene where she loses her prosthetic leg or it gets damaged in the train coupling, and
Yeah.
like her grandfather like eventually makes her that new one, and like he makes it like a golden plate type of thing that I guess is supposed to be like a have a like a tribal symbol or something on it. Is that what it
Yeah.
was?
Yeah.
Which I don't know. It was okay, I guess, but um I guess it gives her like more of a costume too, in a way.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, AJ, any final thoughts before we move on?
Uh, I'm not super excited about the character. The writing was better than I expected. I hope Daredevil is is this on steroids. Like much better.
Right.
I'm partial to the character anyway. I've seen good writing for that character before, so I'm expecting it to be good. And seeing that Marvel's doing revisions and going back to the drawing board is good. So I actually think this show gives me more hope for Daredevil. Um, Probably different teams writing it. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind her, being used in an episode of Daredevil. Maybe she comes across Daredevil's path and they work together or something. Whatever the case might be.
Yeah, I would
Uh,
be okay with her having a cameo role in Daredevil.
yeah. So I'm okay with the character. I don't mind seeing her in the future in smaller roles, like less to a lesser capacity. So yeah, I mean, I don't think they did a terrible job, and they beat my expectations. So yeah, I think they're doing better. Marvel's stepping their game up a little bit here.
Now this did have like this was the first Marvel show to have the Marvel Spotlight banner, and I believe they say that means that like you're basically supposed to be able to watch this in a vacuum and it won't have effects on um other shows, but like you would think that it would, at least if she's not in it, Kingpin's going to be in Daredevil, and like it kind of is a lead in with the whole like him seeing that he can run for mayor of New York. I mean, I guess it's not a huge connection or anything, but it's something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how they write it, you know. Yeah, I think you're right though. If they do go down that path of him becoming mayor, it's not a huge deal though, because it's just like a little stinger at the end of the series. I think it's pretty much to promote what he's going to do in Daredevil anyway. So I mean, it's probably not the biggest connection really, but unless they like really talk about like his past and like his dealings with like Oklahoma and small towns and stuff like that. His network and how far it stretches out. Who knows? But yeah, we'll see what they write about him.
All right, guys. So that is our review of Echo. Consensus is it's okay. Not a big time commitment. So if you, well, I was going to say if you like the character in Hawkeye, maybe watch it here. But she didn't even really make that big of an impression in the Hawkeye series. So I guess I can't say that. But yeah,
She's way more likable here.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And what's the actress's name? Alaqua Cox, something like that.
Oh, I haven't
The
looked it up.
I don't think I've ever seen her in anything else. But then again, I think she is hearing impaired in real life, so you
Okay.
know, might be tough for her to get like a ton of roles. That being the case, but she
Yeah.
fits in here. I thought she did a good job overall.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely had to like pay more attention to the show because a lot of it was sign language, so you had to read
Right.
the subtitles, as opposed to like me watching other stuff and like reading other stuff and like hearing the show in the background. So that was a change of pace for me.
I've in the past few years, just because I feel like a lot of shows and movies have bad sound mixing. I'll actually a lot of times, even in English movies, throw on the subtitles just to you know in case there's bad sound, I can like make sure I'm picking up on everything.
Yeah, I think it has to do with like the audio settings with these DVDs and like these streaming services. Like I think they're expecting you to have like 5.1 Dolby surround sound speakers or something. Like
That could be true. Yeah.
and for me it's like I got this one little sound bar and when it's quiet it's super quiet. When it's loud it's super loud. Like
Yeah.
there's no middle ground it feels like.
Yeah. There's those things mixed where like the dialogue's all soft, and then but you don't want to like really crank it up because then when an action scene or music scene comes on, it'll be like insanely loud.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on from Echo, AJ, have you been watching anything else?
I did. I watched Rick and Morty the 7th season.
Oh wow, they're up to 7 seasons already. How is
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I felt like I don't know if I was just hearing it, like out there in the ether about how like the quality of the show dropped off. The first couple episodes were okay, but I thought the quality was there. I thought it picked up and it was fun watching it. I really enjoy the evil Morty character. Uh, he makes a comeback in this one, and yeah, I mean, all in all, I thought it was still fun to watch. People like to give Rick and Morty too much credit for being like super highbrow or like very
Right,
intelligent.
right.
I don't think it's any of that. I think it's just funny. Um, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to season 8. I also watched season 10 or 11 of Futurama.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
that was good too. First couple episodes were kind of like poking fun at how they got canceled and other stuff like that from the past, and then it picks up from there. So I mean, kind of the same thing with Rick and Morty in a way. Like, only what's amazing about these shows is like I think what Rick and Morty takes like a year off or 2 years off in between seasons, which is pretty long, and Futurama took like what 15 years off.
They Man, yeah, Futurama's had a really weird publishing schedule because it originally came out and they went for a couple years and then it was canceled and there was a big break and then they did like those like at the time straight to like DVD like releases, and I think that
Yeah,
got enough people interested in that they did like a reboot, and then there was also some time in between those. So it's been a very sporadic like show,
yeah, yeah.
but it's
I
hung in
mean, I
there.
think it's just like Rick and Morty. It's smarter than like a dumb blah comedy. Uh, it's not really like the smartest show ever or anything like that, but it's smarter than most cartoon shows, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a fun watch. I enjoy the humor, so Yeah, Rick and Morty and Futurama. I'd recommend both of those.
I don't know who writes Futurama these days, but I know in like the early like seasons, like they say that it had like one of the smartest writers room of all time. Like, people like a bunch of like Harvard graduates and like just like
Yeah, same
really
with The
smart
Simpsons.
people. Yeah, same with The
Yeah.
Simpsons. Yeah. Oh, I was curious. So, uh, I know Justin Roiland, who was the voice of Rick and Morty, he got allegations of like domestic abuse or whatever, and so they dropped him from the show. Is it
Mhm.
very noticeable that they have different voice actors now?
Not at all. I didn't even remember that until you just said that.
Okay, well that's a good thing. Um, Man, that's a show. These cartoons, man, the successful ones, they just like go on like it, like I watched. I want to say I watched the first two seasons of Rick and Morty, and then maybe a couple episodes into season three, and then I got sidetracked and I haven't been back. And now it's like you tell me there's seven seasons. I'm like, oh, now I'll probably never get caught
I
up
know
on that
sometimes it
show.
becomes too daunting. That's how
It
I am with The
does.
Boys. Yeah.
It does happen when a show's too successful and like you don't get on it from day one, and then the seasons just stack up, and it's like, well, now I feel like I can never watch it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people tell me that they're jealous because I get to watch it for the first time and there's so much to watch. But for me, it's like, man, that's a huge commitment right there.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I know there's a ton of great shows I haven't watched, but it is a thing when I see like, boy, it's that many seasons, that many hours. That sounds tough,
Yeah.
especially if it's like one of those old school shows that had like 22 episodes a season or something like that. Then it's like really daunting.
Oh yeah, yeah. Only show that I did enjoy watching in that format was iZombie. That was one that I totally enjoyed catching up on. I think the first episode did a really good, job of setting up the show. It was fun. It was cool. It introduced all the characters in a cool way. Like, yeah, it was a good show for me.
Yeah, I've never watched that. Like I'm aware of it, but I've never sat down. But it's also shows to where I'm like, boy, 5 seasons or whatever, like
Yeah,
multiple, like a lot of episodes.
I'm partial to shows from the Pacific Northwest. We live out here in the Pacific Northwest, so like I guess I just like seeing. I'm like a homer in that way. Oh, look, I live there. That's me. That's my environment.
So like iZombies, like in the Pacific Northwest,
It's in Seattle. Yeah,
Seattle. Okay.
yeah.
What have I been watching? So each week I'm still getting the old Reacher round, watching season two of Reacher. It's a fun show. Um, I will say, like some of the action scenes, like they're not bad, but it's another thing where like I feel like we're so spoiled with John Wick that when you
Mhm.
see a just a kind of a regular action scene that where the choreography is not that tight, you're like, I kind of wish this was John Wickish. You know what I mean? Not
I
that that's
get it.
fair.
I get it. I watched a video by Morse Critical, and he did the exact. He covered that in a segment. He was like, they showed like I guess it's like a circulating scene from Reacher where he's like helping save a dog from this abusive owner, and he's like, you expect this to be like a cool John Wick type fight scene, and it's just kind of like bland and blah and lame. He just punches the guy in the face or whatever. Like, yeah, I totally get it. And John Wick did spoil us. Like, I feel like Jackie Chan and John Wick, like they just did action differently. Like
Yeah.
now everything's just hard to keep up with. Like you have to elevate your choreography.
But I still am enjoying Reacher. It's a show I would totally recommend people watch it. And
Oh, a
apparently,
lot of people are
like
watching it. I've met a few people who have told me about it. Yeah,
apparently it's like Amazon's like I think number one show. Like it's
I
a
believe
big
it.
hit, and they've already greenlit season three. So yeah, people are loving it. I've also been watching more each week season five of Fargo, and man, AJ, I got to tell you, been a great season. This show, there's only one episode left, so like hopefully it doesn't like crap the bed or anything. But man, so far, fantastic season. It's really good.
Season what?
This is season five.
Wow, season 5 still keeping it strong. All
Yeah,
right.
it's great, man. It's really good. I also watched a couple movies. So I watched on Hulu The Creator, which
Okay.
was a movie that came out like maybe late summer, early fall last year, and it's a movie I actually thought about watching in the theater. And after watching it, I'm actually kind of sad I didn't watch it in the theater because it was actually really good. I really liked it. And I don't think it did particularly well in theaters. And now that I've watched it, I'm like, oh, I kind of wish I would have contributed, my little bit
Okay.
to the box office because it's actually pretty good. So the concept of the film is like it takes place sometime in the future. I don't remember exactly how far. And like people develop AI, and at first it's going like really well. Basically, AI is being integrated into society and like becoming a part of people's lives. But then at some point, the AI ignite an atomic bomb in Los Angeles. So now the United States is very against AI, but over in Asia, the people still believe in AI and are still like developing and allowing, and a part of them like kind of believe it's like they have their own autonomy and kind of life of their own. So they're allowing AI to exist. And so now the US is like, we're going to take the war to AI in, in Asia. And they basically developed this basically huge drone system um, to kind of help them. And so, like the lead character is John David Washington, who's Denzel Washington's son. He's
Hmm.
like the lead guy, and well, I don't want to spoil too much, but basically, in early on in the movie, he's on a mission over there undercover, and he falls in love with this woman. Um, and then boy, I'm thinking like I want to be careful. I don't want to spoil too much. Basically, something bad happens, and then years later, the government gets him to go back in there after this AI. And when he gets there, the AI turns out to be like this little girl, and like it ends up kind of being a lone wolf and cub type of story where he's like taking care of this AI girl and like so I don't want to give away too much because I actually don't want to spoil this movie. But yeah, it's good sci-fi. I ended up really liking it, and it actually, honestly, it looks really good too. Like a lot of the effects are really good. So yeah, if you're looking for an original like sci-fi film, The Creator, man, I thought it was really good.
All right. Yeah, might check it out.
Um, so the next one, I actually, AJ, I thought this was an Indian film. It actually turned out to be a film about Pakistani characters,
Hmm.
um, but it's called Polite Society. And this is a movie I remember seeing trailers for, like in the theater for like ahead of another movie we were watching.
Hmm.
Um, and then I never heard anything about it. But then I sometimes listen to podcasts about movies, and like some people were putting this on their top 10 list, so I decided to try it. It's also on Amazon Prime. But it's basically this comedy of this Pakistani girl that's like she's probably like a teenager, and then she's got an older sister who's probably like uh, in her like early to mid 20s, I guess.
Hmm.
But anyway, her sister gets engaged to this guy, and like she doesn't like this guy, so she's basically trying to spoil their relationship.
Hmm.
But also, what's weird is like, so she's like trying to be a she. Her goal in life is to become a stunt woman, and so she's like very into like martial arts and stuff. And so this movie at points has like very like stylized like martial arts fights like with her. It's a very quirky movie. I can't really totally explain it, but the one thing I'll say is like there's a twist in this movie that's very bizarre, and like you won't see it coming. I don't want to give it away because it's like it would be the main reason I would recommend this movie to people. Like overall, like like this isn't anywhere as good as the creator, but it's definitely like I think worth watching. It's a very quirky movie. It is legitimately funny in spots, but just the weirdness of it and that twist that I don't want to give away. I would recommend people watch it. It's unique.
Okay.
And then finally, just today on HBO Max, I watched another one of those like DC like animated films. This one's called Justice League War World.
Man, they're
Um,
pumping those DC movies out.
yeah,
There's
they
so
make
much
a lot of
animated
them,
content. Yeah.
and to be honest, a lot of them are mid. A lot of them aren't like great.
Okay.
And this is one of those that I would say is not a must watch. It's kind of a weird one because you start off and you don't really know what's happening, and it they basically created this framework to tell a bunch of like kind of like elseworldly type stories. Like, so the first one, you got Wonder Woman is in the Wild West, and you're like, how did she get here? Like, what's going on? And then it transitions to a story where like Batman is kind of like in a Conan the Barbarian type story, uh, um, with a character called Warlord that's in DC Comics. And then it transitions to this kind of like black and white, like Superman as Clark Kent is like a government agent, like investigating like um, uh, a UFO sighting type of thing, and you're like, again, it's kind of like what's going on, and then you find out that they've all been kind of like forced into these illusions. They're actually on War World, which is like this moving planet that a villain called Mongol controls. And then basically in the end, there's just like this big fight between them and a bunch of aliens. Overall, kind of a just a I don't know, not great. As far as these DC ones, like animated films go, it's probably on the lower scale. I would say
Oh,
I
that
don't
sucks.
really recommend it. It's just it's not very good.
You know, that sucks because like I really liked Flashpoint, and I wish they would make like great content like that. You know, like
Yeah, Flashpoint was a good one.
yeah, I think Dark Side War wasn't bad either.
Yeah, that one was okay as well. Or
Yeah.
yeah, it was either Dark Side War or Apocalypse War. One of those. Yeah, that
Okay.
one was
Yeah.
decent. Some of the Batman ones are good. Like I thought the Dark Knight two-part adaptation was pretty good. Or Dark Knight
Okay.
Returns. And then also, I think my favorite one is Batman Under the Red Hood, which tells the story of Jason Todd coming back to life and all that. That
Red
one's
Hood,
pretty
right?
good. Yeah, Red Hood.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, there's a lot of them that are just either mid or kind of bad.
Yeah. Ugh. It's still better than Marvel's animated stuff, man. Theirs is just kind of whack.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird because Marvel has access to their animation studios, which have traditionally made very good stuff.
Hmm.
They even got Pixar if they maybe ever wanted to do. Well, I'm sure Pixar doesn't want to do a Marvel
Yeah.
property type
Right.
thing,
Yeah.
but they got great animation, and I don't know why they don't really capitalize on those for more Marvel projects. Sony doing great work with the Spider Verse movies. It's
Really
surprising.
good work.
Yeah,
I I think Spider Verse is the best animated superhero stuff I've seen so far. You know, like I, I didn't give Sony any credit up until that point. I thought Sony was just dropping the ball so badly. I don't know how they hit that out of the park twice. Um, but well done, man. It's just creative the way they're doing it. It's very funny. It's clever. Um, yeah, I mean they actually pushed the envelope with that one.
yeah, those movies are fantastic. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think. Yeah, even I mean, I am kind of curious of because I watched the hell out of the X-Men cartoon as a kid,
Oh, me too.
and now Disney is gonna come back with X-Men '97, which is like supposed to like basically just pick up on that show.
Mhm.
And so I'm kind of curious about that. Um, a couple months ago when I had Disney, I watched a couple of those X-Men like episodes, and like,
Those old ones? Do they
yeah,
hold
the
up?
old ones, and like they're okay. They're okay. Um, but I don't think I could get through. Like somewhere in my head, I was like, well, maybe I'll watch them all in the lead up to like the reboot, but I probably never will get back
I'm
to it.
sure I would feel the same way as you, dude. Like I have a nostalgic, like, old Spider-Man and old X-Men. I used to love them both. But I know if I went back and watched them now, I'd be like, oh, that was my kid brain.
I did watch a couple of Spider-Mans because I was curious of those two because yeah, I watched the hell out of those as a kid too. And same thing where I'm like it's the ones I watched weren't terrible, but at the same time, it's like I don't know. It's not like Batman the animated series where you can watch as a kid or an adult and be like, "Wow, this is really something." It
Right.
is something where you're like, "Yeah, I would have liked this better when I was a kid." You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And as an adult, you're like, I can appreciate certain aspects of it, but it's not rocking my world.
Right, yeah.
I will say though that X-Men opening theme song is still a banger.
Oh, of course, yeah. They have to bring it back every time they get a chance. They better be in Deadpool too.
It wouldn't surprise me, man. They used it a little bit in Multiverse of Madness when
Yeah.
Xavier showed up. Let's see. AJ, do you want to wrap it up early or do you want to do a story?
Let's save the stories, man. I think we had a good review episode today.
Yeah, same here. I'm trying to think like what the next thing will be that will actually get a review.
Hmm.
Might be because I got to say I don't really want to do Madam Web.
No. I have no idea when that even comes out.
I want to say it's like Valentine's Day thereabouts,
Oh.
but
Oh, right. Oh, that movie looks so bad. Yeah.
I would be shocked if that movie like people say it's good.
If I could short that movie, I would.
If you could what?
Short that movie, like bet against it
Oh,
financially, like,
right.
I would. It would be a safe bet.
I do wonder though, like because with Sony, like I think the Venom movies like made money, but like Morbius, I don't think did, and like I do wonder like if they lose money on these Sony movies that are coming out this year, like would Sony then maybe consider like, oh, maybe we should sell the Spider-Man movie rights to Marvel? Like, I wonder if there's an amount of money they could lose to where they would be like, okay, like we're not doing this anymore.
They would definitely have to like separate live action Spider-Man from like animated Spider-Man because like one is actually doing well. So
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
yeah,
live action. Like, I don't legally. I figure there's got to be a way they can do that. But yeah, I mean, they're doing so good with those Spider Verse movies. They're not going to give those up, and
yeah, yeah.
they're making money hand over fist with the video game. So it would make sense for them to give that up.
Right,
But
right.
I don't know the live action stuff. Boy, it's so bad.
They just we've seen the sneaky tactics studios use to like hold on to characters, like they'll make movies and not even release them just so that they, you know, use that intellectual property at some point so the license doesn't have to revert back to the original, company.
Right.
It I don't know. I do wish the people who could tell the story are the ones who end up telling the story, like yeah.
But yeah, Madam Web, Craven the Hunter, and I want to say, wasn't there a third Sony
Oh,
movie that was
Craven
maybe
the
coming out?
Hunter. Oh my god. They're
Ugh.
just giving money away.
Yeah, when someone like me that legitimately like likes superhero stuff, and I'm like, boy, I really do not want to watch this. You know, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, yeah. They're really scraping the bottom of these elite. Look, I don't know how they got their hands on Spider-Man when these are the villains they got to go with him. Like you would think you'd get like the main bad guys, with Spider-Man. Like somebody interesting. These are people nobody's ever heard of. There's no casual fan is going to be like, "Oh yeah, Spider-Man versus Craven the Hunter," or Madam Web or whatever. Like I don't know. It's just not appealing to anybody. Even the most veteran comic book readers are not going to be. These are these are kind of still obscure characters. You know, they're either new or they're not really hit comics. You know, I don't know.
Or they're just not compelling on their own. Like some of them, like the compelling thing was to see like Spider-Man interact with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And like the thing is, like if you put them in a movie like this, you have to make them. I guess Madam Web wasn't a villain, but like you know, characters like Craven and Venom that were traditionally villains, you have no choice but to basically make them anti-heroes because nobody
yeah.
wants to follow like a straight up villain. And then it's like, well, if you ever did get to the point where you were going to introduce Spider-Man, then like, do people want to have Spider-Man like then beat the crap out of these like hero or villains that you made quasi heroes out of necessity? You know what I mean? It's just I don't know. It's weird.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember this for sure, but I thought Madam Web was like this very high level character who like controlled like basically like or managed the web of Spider-Man and like the how they're all tied together and their destinies and stuff like that. Like she's
Something
not
along those
Dakota
lines.
Johnson learning this stuff on the fly in the street level character who's like, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read like a ton of like her in the comic books. I mostly remember her from the Spider-Man cartoon where she's the old woman version, and yeah, she's like very much like the mythological like fates or whatever, and she can see all these, the webs linking past and future and all that.
Hmm.
And I know there is in the comics. There's like a younger version of her that I think that's what Dakota Johnson's character is more like, but I really don't. I'm not familiar with that version of the character at all, so like I can't really say whether it's good or bad in the comics or not.
Hmm.
Um, but I just have no faith in Sony making one of these that doesn't suck.
Yeah. I haven't seen much of Dakota Johnson's work. I don't know if she's like a really compelling actress or anything like that. Maybe she can bring it to life, but from what I saw in the trailers, I wasn't excited.
Yeah, I, because she was in those 50 Shades of Grey movie, which like I think most people pan and say those are like pretty terrible. I don't know about her performance in them.
I've seen the breakdowns of it. She looks pretty cardboard in those. Like it's pretty, yeah.
A few years like I don't know. It's probably about a 5 year old movie now at this point. But Bad Times at the El Royale. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Very good movie. Very very good movie. She's in there, and like I love that movie. Like her performance is just fine. But like that's the only movie I've seen her in that I like really enjoyed the movie. But yeah, I don't think I've seen most of her movies, so I can't really judge her too harshly.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Holland was a new name, but I think he did a really good job portraying Spider-Man.
Yeah, agreed.
He was
Yeah.
very expressive. You could feel the emotion. Like the tragic scenes are really tragic because he reacts well. Um, the writing is obviously good, in those movies. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'm definitely pessimistic.
That's another thing that disappoints me with these like contract negotiations between Marvel, or, Disney, Marvel, and Sony, is that like we haven't seen Tom Holland as Spider-Man in forever, like since No Way
Yeah.
Home. And it's like, when are we going to get to see another Spider-Man movie, or him even appear? And like, by the time he appears, is he going to be he's got to be a college student now because because he's getting like
Maybe they're
older.
doing that on purpose. I don't know. Like, I mean, they're gonna make more Spider-Man, right? Like, they're gonna make two more, aren't they?
I honestly don't know what the status of like the Marvel Sony contract is with him. It's you would have thought that if Marvel was going to make that agreement, they would have made it rock solid and know that it was going to last long enough to get what they wanted out of Spider-Man. Because like where they leave it at, you know, after No Way Home, like it would be kind of unsatisfying if that's the last we ever get of him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they definitely gotta, tie up those loose ends and like really. I want to see how the conclusion goes with that. I wouldn't mind one more movie, you know. I just want to see what happens next. I really like the character.
Yeah, I mean,
Hey,
and
I've
everybody
been meaning to. Uh-huh.
at some point, like whether it's Marvel or Sony, like somebody's going to make another live action Spider-Man movie because he's too popular of a character not to.
Yeah, let it be Marvel.
God, I hope
uh,
so. I hope so.
I've been meaning to ask. Have you heard the updates on Kang?
Um, so all I know is that obviously Disney dropped Jonathan Majors,
Mhm.
um, and they dropped originally that first Avengers movie was going to be called Kang Dynasty. That apparently is no more. Right now, they're just calling it like Avengers 5 or whatever. From what I understand, it's most likely the conjecture is that what was going to be the Kang Dynasty now will probably be like Secret Wars, like Part 1, and then a Secret Wars Part 2 or something like that. Like maybe it won't be called Part 1 and Part 2, but it does seem like they're probably going to pivot to Doctor Doom and drop the Kang character rather than recasting. I don't think they've totally decided, but some of the movie podcasts and stuff I listen to, it seems like, um, yeah, they might just be pivoting away from Kang, which I don't know, kind of disappointing to me, but
Well, I mean, I've heard that Coleman Domingo is being thought of. I don't know who's circulating this. From what I understand, it's a somewhat reliable source.
I actually
Uh,
did see that headline as well, and I'm not familiar with him as an actor, but
he was in Selma. I don't know what else he was in. Let me see. He was in another show too. He played like a villain in another show. From what I understand, he's a good actor. I saw him. He's a big jack dude. He's like 20 years older than Jonathan Majors, but that could be like a future version of Kang, you know.
yeah.
So I really don't want them to abandon this whole Kang storyline. I think they've done a great job laying out the groundwork, and there's so much potential there, and a lot of people are already invested. And as much as I wanted them to stick with Jonathan Majors, this guy looks. I mean, he looks great. He looks like he's got the acting chops. Like I would love to see them move forward with somebody else.
Yeah, that would be my preference. And like I've heard a lot of people say, like, well, they basically you can consider the end of Loki a wrap on that character, another thing. And I'm like, yeah, I guess technically you can, but like, remember Quantumania? Even though it like wasn't a great movie, like there's that whole scene at the end where like Paul Rudd's like thinking in his head, and he's like, I forget exactly what he's like, but he's like, oh, what if I miss something? And like that guy is coming back or whatever,
Yeah.
and they kind of set up this sense of dread, like something is coming, and it's like just
Mhm.
to be like, oh, and that was all handled in Loki and it's done. Like
Mhm.
that's anticlimactic to me and
For sure.
disappointing. Um, like, and yeah, it's like it's definitely a character you can recast. So like, I hope they do, but it wouldn't surprise me if they just pivoted away.
Fingers crossed.
Well, AJ, I think that'll do it for our show today. It was good talking about Echo and all these TV shows we've been watching. But anyway, everybody, please follow us both on the YouTube channel, and you can follow us in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave us thumbs up, post comments, positive reviews, all that good stuff. If you like, you can follow me over on Twitter/X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. And that'll do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.